After 6 nights of magical soundscapes, glowing forests, singing crystals, rushing rivers, the hum of the train itself, the silence was so complete it felt like a presence. She opened her eyes and saw that the train had stopped. Outside her window was a valley unlike anything she'd imagined. Aurora Valley. The landscape glowed with soft, dancing lights, curtains of color that moved like northern lights but were somehow also solid, somehow also alive. Greens and blues and purples flowed across the sky and through the valley itself, creating waves of luminescence that passed through trees and hills and water without disturbing them. The lights seemed to come from the earth and the sky simultaneously, as if the valley existed at the meeting point of all sources of illumination. But it was the feeling of the place that truly struck Eleanor. Even from inside the train, separated by glass and distance, she could sense it. A profound peace, a deep rightness, a sensation of finally, after a long journey, arriving home. All the conductors were waiting in her compartment, Orion, Luna, Harmony, and Time, along with several others she'd seen but not formally met. They stood in a semicircle, their otherworldly forms somehow more visible here, in this place where magic and reality merged completely. "Aurora Valley," Orion said simply, gesturing to the window. "You've arrived." Eleanor stood on trembling legs and moved to the window, pressing her palms against the glass. The valley was vast, containing forests and meadows, lakes and rivers, mountains and caves. But all of it was suffused with that dancing light, that aurora glow that made everything beautiful, everything sacred. She could see other passengers already outside, some walking slowly through the glowing meadows, others sitting in quiet contemplation, still others lying in the luminescent grass and staring up at the lights dancing overhead. Some were passengers she recognized from this journey, but others were strangers, perhaps from previous trains or trains that had departed from different stations, all converging here, in this valley where transformation became complete. "This is where your journey ends and begins?" Luna said softly, stepping forward to place a hand on Eleanor's shoulder. "Everything you've experienced over the past 6 nights has been preparation for this moment. The moment you step into Aurora Valley and decide who you will be when you return home." "I don't understand," Eleanor said, though part of her did, part of her that existed beyond words and logic. "What happens here? That depends on the passenger," Time explained, their vine-woven form rustling gently. "Aurora Valley shows you your authentic self, not as potential, not as possibility, but as reality. Here, the person you truly are becomes visible, undeniable. For some, this is a joyful reunion with a self they've long known. For others, it's a revelation, seeing clearly for the first time who they've always been beneath all the masks and compromises." "And then," Eleanor asked, her heart pounding. "Then you choose," Harmony said, their crystalline hair catching the aurora light and scattering it in rainbow patterns. "You can accept what you see, accept your authentic self and commit to bringing that self back with you into the ordinary world. Or you can reject it, leave the valley unchanged, return home as you were. The train doesn't force transformation. It only offers the possibility." Orion opened the door to the train platform. "Come, let us walk with you into the valley. Let us show you who you truly are." Eleanor stepped off the train onto a platform made of white stone that glowed with its own gentle light. The moment her feet touched the stone, she felt it. A shift in her entire being, as if she was seeing herself from outside, from above, from every angle simultaneously. The conductors led her along a path that wound down from the platform into the valley proper. As they walked, the Aurora lights danced around them, through them, and Eleanor realized they weren't just light. They were something else, something more. They were pure being, pure authenticity, the essence of what it meant to be truly oneself without filter or pretense. They walked past a grove of trees that seemed to be made of living aurora, their trunks solid but translucent, their leaves catching light and transforming it into something even more beautiful. Birds nested in their branches, birds that sang not with voices but with colors, each song a symphony of hues that expressed emotions too complex for words. They walked along a stream where the water was perfectly clear and perfectly still, despite seeming to flow. Eleanor looked into it and saw not her reflection but something deeper, her essence, her core, the irreducible truth of who she was. A creator, a seeker of beauty, a woman who transformed vision into visible form. An artist not as profession but as fundamental nature. This is the stream of true sight, Luna explained. Most passengers spend hours here, simply looking, simply seeing themselves without all the stories they tell themselves, without all the roles they play. Just seeing. Eleanor knelt beside the stream and looked deeper. She saw herself not as others saw her, not as she saw herself in ordinary mirrors, but as she truly was. All her contradictions and complexities, all her fears and courage, all her mistakes and growth, all woven together into a person who was imperfect and beautiful, flawed and worthy, still becoming and already complete. They continued walking until they reached a pavilion on a hill where 7 mirrors stood in a circle. The mirrors of integration. Each mirror showed Eleanor through the lens of a different landscape. The luminous forest, the glass lakes, the crystal caverns, the garden of lost hours, the bridge between worlds, the singing river, and finally, here in Aurora Valley itself. The 7th mirror showed her integrated self, the person who had traveled through all these landscapes and allowed them to change her, the person who had learned and grown and chosen again and again, to become more authentic, more true, more herself. "This is who you are," Orion said, standing beside her. "Do you accept her?" Eleanor stared at the woman in the mirror, herself, but somehow more. "Yes," she said, her voice steady and clear. "Yes, I accept her. I accept myself. All of myself. I commit to bringing her home, to living authentically, to being this person even when it's hard." The moment she spoke those words, the 7 mirrors blazed with light, and Eleanor felt something fundamental shift inside her. She was changed, truly, irreversibly changed. Soon after, the return journey began, and Eleanor carried Aurora Valley within her. Not as memory, but as reality. When she finally stepped off the train back onto platform 13, back into her ordinary world, she was different. The world might look the same, but she would move through it differently. At home, she immediately retrieved her art supplies and set up a workspace by the window. She picked up a brush, touched it to paint, touched it to canvas, and made the first mark. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. It was honest. It was her. This was just the beginning. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new choices, new opportunities to honor the integration she'd woven. But tonight, she had paint on her hands and purpose in her heart. And for the first time in years, she was truly, courageously, completely herself.